Okay, good morning everyone. How are you? How is everything? Today for sociology, we're going to complete the main points in the winter packet. And it's a reminder that the winter packet is a kind of review for what we took in last semester. Make sure you know the points, make sure you finish up the winter packet, and also make sure that everything is on the right track. Okay, so I just want to make a few announcements. Number one, before you ask me about the camera you don't have to have it on for you to be present. So when you're present in the session, you are present, you don't have to open the camera to be present. However, I want you to open the camera to have full points on participation behavior because we want to be interactive, participate, make debates, talk about social problems, topics. It's part of the class, part of the environment of the class. You find that if you want to go to field social science or any other related field like business or human resources, actually most of the fields in college, if not all, you need to present, you debate. So this is going to be an important part of the class. So please make sure you open the camera, get used to saying your ideas and perspectives, and also make sure that everything is on the right track. As I said before, it's a reminder that you always need to review like around maximum half an hour after the session or after a day, and like that you are on track so that in the end, when we have the quiz or the project or assignments, it won't be really hard on you. You just have to do the assignment or study for 10 minutes, maximum an hour for the quiz or the project to work on, and you'll have all the information in your head, okay, from what you did before. So make sure that you always, divide your time weekly at least twice or 3 times a week, half an hour. 15 to half an hour will be great, okay? And I think by that time, you'll have, everything on the right track, okay? So you won't be stressed out with your other courses in this course if you have projects or final projects or exams. This is a reminder for you for the year because we will have some projects. It's a big semester, and hopefully next year you'll be in 12th grade and you'll be ready. Okay, so always organize like that with everything that comes up. You won't be stressed out, and it will be, it will be a great year to come. You won't think about anything of studying or anything else. Okay. So good morning, Nuran. Good morning, Asma. And this is just a reminder that you don't have to have the camera on to be present. However, it's part of your participation grade. So I will not give full points for participation if you don't have the camera on. You need to have the camera on, and the audio, obviously, if you have a problem, that's an excuse. Okay. So today we're going to finish up the winter packet. And hopefully we will start with the first topic. It's basically about overpopulation and family problem, okay? So let me open up the winter packet to share it with you. And while I'm opening up, if you can tell me from last time, what do you remember? Hi, Nuran, great, good job. How are you? How is everything? Going great? Okay, so Nuran and Asma, if you can tell me about last time, we talked about the difference between Karl Marx, okay, and Max Weber, right? So, and
no, I think lost the
mean median mode, right? And
the sociological imagination.
Sociological imagination. Okay, excellent.
And about I think about the giraffe.
The giraffe, yes, and Spencer. Okay, so last time we watched the video for sociological imagination, right? And we talked about the obese problem, right? Social problem of obesity. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can, and Asma, tell me, one thing you found interesting about how we can approach the obesity problem through sociological imagination. So do you find anything?
Miss, I'm sorry for interrupting, but there seems to be someone in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's Muhammad Salah.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much. If you have anything, please tell me, yes, or chat or on the chat. Good morning, Muhammad. How are you? How is everything? Good?
Good.
Excellent. I saw yesterday you came in and you came out. So I'm very happy that you came today. And I hope you had a great vacation, okay? Did you listen for the announcements and everything on the WhatsApp group? Do you know everything that's going on in the class?
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. Okay, great. Do you have any questions?
No, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so make sure that you finish up the winter packet if you did not, and everything else before January 17th, the assignments, quizzes to improve your grade. Okay, and everyone
Okay.
else too. Okay, great. So as I open up the document, I want you guys to tell me one interesting fact about the obesity problem. How can we, approach it through sociological imagination? Okay, so let us think about it for a while until I open up the document. Okay. I remember we talked about the obesity problem, how we approach nutrition and exercise, right? Different cultures approach it differently. So, for example, in the United States, we saw in the video that they approach it in a way of, if you eat too much fat or calories, or if you, for example, go to different, occasions and you eat and you don't do exercise, that means you increase your weight. Okay. In other cultures, they are more attracted towards, maybe a more healthy kind of choices, right? So it's more of their diet is healthy, right? Like for example, in Asia and other places. So they don't have that issue really. The choices that they have are different. So obviously their obesity problem is different, maybe from disease or genes, right? As well as you find in the culture how you view food and how you view exercise and how you have your body image. So I have a question: does it affect you how you see your body, in how obese you can be, or your health? Is there a relationship here of how you see your body and how you see society sees your body in body image? What do you think?
I don't know exactly, but I think it will be a difference between both.
I agree. For example, if you see your body image in the sense of in a positive way, right? Usually it's positive on you, right? And if everyone else sees it in a positive way, usually also it's positive. Okay, in the sense of you don't usually have body image problems, right? Like to change, or maybe you want to lose weight a little bit, maybe you want to increase, maybe you want to do exercise, be more fit. You don't really have a problem. Usually people, if they think like, oh my God, everyone is looking at me, or
Yes,
especially, yes.
Ali Bustani asking you to let him in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Yusuf
Sure.
Khalif and Ali came in. Excellent. So hopefully they open up the camera and we'll see them. So right now we're talking about body image and obesity. Okay, so basically sociological imagination approach is how we interact with the world and organize the world in our heads and how we see it, right? It's a kind of imagination, okay? It's our world that we create inside of us to have a kind of organization of how society is, the different ideals of it, values. Like for example, obesity, how do we see our body image, and how do we see, other people seeing it, and also how do we see food, commercials, how do you see everyday life relating to our body health, obesity, and other diseases, okay? So this is really important, and it differs from culture to culture, okay? Okay, so for Yusuf and Ali, the newcomers, please open up your camera, okay? If you don't open up your camera, it's okay, you'll be present. However, I would advise you to, because to get a full participation grade, to increase your behavior, in a good way in the class, and also the participation, giving your perspectives and everything else. Obviously, if it's not working, then that's different, right? It's excused.
Miss, بس I'm using a PC يعني, so it doesn't have a camera.
Okay, no problem. Try to get a camera, because this semester we're gonna try to always talk and discuss. And also, we're going to talk about different topics. It's going to be different than last semester. So it's nice if you get a camera, and Asma too, if you can open up the camera, that would be great. Okay, so
Yes, I'll start opening it from next week.
okay, excellent job. Hi Ali, how are you? How is everything going? Great, you're on top of things from the beginning. That's great. Okay, good job. And you're on too. As for Yusuf, Asma, Muhammad, everyone else, good job and keep it up. Okay, and hopefully we'll have a great semester coming. Okay, so right now we talked about body image last time and sociological imagination. We did a review for the winter packet. Does anyone have any questions? Let me share it. Okay. We talked about the polls, the US elections, and right here. Yes. Does anyone have any questions about the, kind of quick review from last semester? If you have any questions about Karl Marx, Max Weber, the math part of statistics. I have a quick question. What's the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics? Can someone help me out here?
Descriptive is making mean, medium, and mode. Examples of mean, medium, and mode.
Excellent
But the
job.
inferential are the cause and effect, or
Okay, descriptive.
equal of all things.
Yes. So descriptive mean, median, mode. What does that mean? So if I ask you what is descriptive statistics, what would you define? How would you define it? So what does that mean? What are you doing with the data in descriptive statistics? What are you doing? What's the importance of descriptive statistics? What does it do with the data? So you did a research project and you got data. Descriptive statistics, what does it do to the data? What do you do with it? Does anyone know? Okay, you summarize.
Support
Yes.
the data?
Excellent. Okay, so it's more of summarizing and organizing the data, right, and giving some meaning to it in the sense of understanding what you got. Okay, so the data you have different you have raw data in the sense of maybe different percentages or tally marks or whatever, but there's no meaning to it. So you need to organize it, you need to summarize it, and then afterwards you will afterwards change it into, after you organize it and summarize it and you put it in a meaningful way so you can understand the data and you can compare it with mean, median, mode, probability, and everything else. What's the next step? After descriptive statistics, what do?
We will make an inferential statistic.
Excellent job. And what do you do with inferential statistics?
Is to see all the things.
Okay, it's more of analyzing it, right? So, for example, in the experiment that you have, for example, or research of divorce rates in Egypt, okay, you have the different, for example, different ratings and the numbers in front of you, the different rates of divorce. But then maybe there's a theory of that. For example, let's say you have the rates of divorce in the past 5 years. There's a theory that the first 2 years there was higher rates of divorce than the next 3 years. Okay, so you divide the first 2 years and then and after it the next 3 years, right? You divide them, and so you will see in the data if that supports it. Okay, that's part of inferential statistics, right? You're analyzing the data and see if it supports any theory, if it relates to any kind of perspective. So you look at the data and then you say, yes, my data does show that the first 2 years I have higher rates of divorce than the rest 3. You see how? Okay. Yes, is that clear or still? So it's a kind of analyzation supporting a theory, relating to maybe another theory, relating to a perspective. showing kind of a viewpoint that the researcher may have, that other theorists may have. Okay, so that's the importance of inferential statistics. It's of taking the next step after organizing, giving meaning to your data, is to analyze it, to summarize it, not analyze it and leading to a theory. Okay, is that clear or no? Yes. Okay.
Yes, clear.
So a descriptive, it's more summarizing, giving meaning. The next step is inferential. You analyze and you relate it to a theory. You give a perspective. You talk about maybe supporting a kind of argument, okay, in a social problem, right? So this is the role of inferential statistics. Okay. So let us right now move on to overpopulation as a social problem. Okay, who remembers what is overpopulation? What does it mean? What does overpopulation mean?
The amount of people around the world.
Okay, the amount of people around the world is population, right? The number of
Yeah.
people that exist is the population, okay? So what about overpopulation? What does it mean?
I know it's in Arabic.
More than.
Okay, try to put it in English. So let's try to think about a definition together of overpopulation. So, for example, when we say China has overpopulation in Egypt, what does that mean?
More people than usual.
Excellent job, more people than usual, right? So,
Overflow in people.
what did you say?
There's an overflow in the amount of people in the country.
Okay, there's an overflow of amount of people, which means that there are too many people, right? So there are too many people to handle in the country. It's too much for it. It cannot grasp. Okay, so the country, its tools and its resources, it's made for a certain amount. Overpopulation creates amount more than what the country can handle. Okay, and that causes a problem. So does that cause a social problem in that sense? You think that would be a big social problem, like in China and Egypt and other places in Africa?
That's true.
Yes, it does, right? It does. So some countries will find it cannot handle the overpopulation. So why don't we look at the problem of overpopulation here. Okay, so this is a nice video. I want you to concentrate on what problems is caused from it. What is it? Okay, where and how can we overcome it? Okay, so remember, we think about the definition of the problem, we think about characteristics of the problem, and then afterwards how we can solve it. Okay, great. Okay, so let us open this one. Okay, and I'll share it right away. Okay. Let us share it. Okay. Okay, can you see the video? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So let us watch it and concentrate on what overpopulation is, what are the characteristics, and if there are any kind of solutions.
Breathing the same oxygen, sharing the same space, and creating more and more greenhouse gases. Ignoring this exponential population rise, nature will pursue population for us. Is this the whole story? There's a lot of misconceptions about the nature of population growth.
This debate is not understood in the way it should be.
Miss, I can't hear anything.
Okay. Can you see it right now?
Also have to do with frozen
Yes, I can see it, but I can hear it.
Can you see it or no? Can you see it?
Yeah,
Yes, I
Baudi,
Yes, okay, great.
you need to.
can hear it.
We can't hear it. We can see it, but we can't hear it.
Okay,
No.
let me make.
In an insecure world.
Can you hear right now?
On the
No?
Indian subcontinent, for example, Chanakya the philosopher
No.
suggests that widows quickly
Okay.
find new husbands.
Okay,
It's better.
it's better? Okay, so can you hear it? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I
Oh,
can hear you.
sorry.
Yes.
Great, excellent.
During the Mughal rule, the increase in population was celebrated as it meant more people could work on a farm and produce more food. The Roman emperors were no different, in some cases passing laws to promote early marriage and frequent childbirth so their armies could stay up to strength.
Okay, here is in history, right? They're talking about the Roman population and the Greek populations in ancient history times and in China. They favored overpopulation, so they like to have many children. Okay, so obviously they celebrated for it in the sense of many children and everything else was positive for society and they can grasp it, right? So would that be considered as a problem back then? Do you think it was a social problem? If yes or no?
Yes.
No, right? A social problem is usually negative for society, okay? In the sense of, now you may debate then it's not, in the sense it's not overpopulation, right? Because overpopulation, one of the characters is that it's too much, right? It's too much for a country to handle, okay, or so forth. But there's also the cultural aspect, right, and in the time period. So obviously it's not very it's not very favored because it's too much, right? And not only that, it causes many problems that we will see, but in the past, think about their approach. They saw it very positive to have many children, and it's a good sign. And obviously, they didn't have these problems that we have today. We have today with it. So in this case, it's not considered as a social problem because there are no negative kind of issues, except if the society sees it negative and there are problems that arise. Okay, do you see? So part of a social problem is that it's negative for society, causes many problems, and not only that, it's an issue, right? That is debated upon. They do research and they try to solve it. Okay, so take that into consideration that sometimes the time period, the place also makes a difference if it's a social problem or not. Okay.
Life was mostly about popping babies and setting up new colonies until the number of people started becoming a visible problem. In the 18th century, British economist Thomas Malthus started ringing alarm bells. Okay, ancient history lesson done. In more modern times, the fear exploded with the publication of a book called The Population Bomb. Its author, an American biologist, warned the Western world of the conditions he has seen in New Delhi. Overpopulation was soon blamed for everything from poverty and poor resource management to destroying the environment. Some countries began experimenting with morally and politically dubious methods of population control. China became the poster child, and its one-child policy resulted in a disastrous gender imbalance. And like other control measures in Asia, it was eventually repealed. But the enemy had been identified as overpopulation. So what exactly is overpopulation? It is defined by carrying capacity, a slightly complicated concept, which basically means the number of individuals and ecosystems resources like food, water, and space can sustain indefinitely. But demographers have consistently got it wrong.
The early calculation says only 4 billion is the carrying capacity of Earth. But today, we are almost feeding the more than 7 billion.
Okay, so who can tell me what is the definition for overpopulation so far? What do you understand? What is the definition of overpopulation?
That you have too many people and not enough resources.
Good job. So in the sense of what is too many people in this sense, like you're saying, what would you find too many people? So when we say too many people in the sense of if we have like you know, 5 million, right? And then we can hold 7 million. Would that be overpopulation? No, excellent
No.
job. It'll be over 5 million, right? So 6 million, 7 million, we hold 5 million. That's overpopulation, right? So it's over the capacity that we can hold, which is we can hold 5 million, and it's over 5 million. Okay, great. So here, obviously, there are big numbers, okay, and you'll find that it is a huge problem.
Population, because we have supplemented our natural resources with the technological resources, and we have to use the resources to sustain the population.
So we're not quite sure what the Earth's carrying capacity is because the variables are constantly changing. One thing's for sure, it's not the population element that's going to be the problem. Already in the developed world, the population has largely stabilized or begun to decline. And the developing world is on track to follow. Education and access to contraception are driving the numbers down, even if cities don't look like it yet.
Then people get this perception that these cities are overcrowded and they're really busy. Well, actually, what's happened is that planners haven't really taken into account the population growth that's going to happen anyway. And then there's a second point, which is actually the kind of bigger impacts on the environment are linked to consumption.
That's all I can say. As seen around the world, consumption, unlike population, is on an exponential rise.
Okay, here's a very important characteristic. So we talked about the numbers, okay, and the numbers, as you can see, it depends on the time period on the graph and how much it increases. So besides the capacity, how much it increases, okay? So sometimes the capacity is already over, like it's already over, 5 million, it's like 7 million, but increased in the last maybe 3 years, another 7 million. And so in that sense, it's like overpopulation, okay? So that's really important. The other thing is the consumption world, okay? So the supermarkets, how you can get the traffic, everything that is used, consumption, supermarkets, shops, work, traffic, everything you can think about with consumption, as you can see, it's very hard. So there's no kind of organization, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of demand, and obviously you can't even organize, you can't even have a kind of proper kind of life, right? So how do you think it would affect us in the consumption world if you have overpopulation? Muhammad, Ahmad, Yusuf, Khalaf, and Asma, how do you think? Yes, excellent job, Muhammad Salah. So how do you think it would affect us with consumption, with this world?
Overpopulation,
Yes.
global warming.
Okay, global warming, excellent. They talked about global warming, right? So how would it affect in the consumption? So global warming in the sense of maybe we use too much of the material or things that increases global warming, right? So in countries...
Like carbon dioxide.
Exactly. Good job. So if we have too many people and they all use, a kind of, tools that we use every day, it can increase global warming. And so usually in these places, it would have the climate change and everything would increase negatively, and also the global warming would increase, right? Excellent job. That's a good point. And what do you think? What do you think besides consumption before we move on? What's another point? What's another thing that can affect society? Yusuf and Asma, do you think of an idea that can affect society and the world negatively from overpopulation? Ali and Nuran, do you have any idea? Okay, we'll see. Okay, so think about it. Yes, the different characteristics and we'll talk.
Globally, across cities, within cities, they're highly, highly unequal.
Okay, so let's then look at how we are consuming resources in that equation. Every year, researchers look at the Earth's annual resource budget and calculate at what point we will use it up. If we look at this by country, the differences are startling. Many nations in the Middle East and West exhaust their budget in the first quarter, while a few countries like India don't overshoot yet.
The average American consumes 16 times of higher resources than an average Indian.
And correspondingly, how much carbon dioxide we emit around the world is different too. In 2018, an Indian family of 4 had a carbon footprint of less than 8 tons. An American family of 4 in the same year came in at almost 70. So shouldn't we then be looking at who is consuming and how much, instead of simply counting the number of people?
Okay, that's another point here. She's saying that overpopulation.
How?
Okay,
How is the American family producing 70 and the Indian family just 8?
okay. This is a good point. Excellent. What I want you to think here is that how much important it is for us to look at the data, for us to look at the social problem, and really be precise about how it is created. Okay? So the data here shows that in the US it's 70, and in India it's 8. Although which country has overpopulation? India, right? India is the country that has overpopulation. US does have a big number of population. Actually, they do have issues with it, but not like India. Okay, in the sense of it's actually not one of the countries that don't have an issue with that. So there are issues in most countries today, but it's one of those countries that it's normal. Okay, so it's still in the normal level. So in that sense, it is because of, like she said, it's the carbon dioxide usage. Okay, so as you can see in the U.S., they use more and more carbon dioxide than in India. So obviously in global warming here, you also have the sense of, you look at the data. So some countries, it does affect if they have overpopulation and usage of carbon dioxide, in the sense of it does make a difference, okay? It does increase it. Other countries, in this case, it doesn't, okay? So she's saying that we have to be careful here in the sense of, like for example, overpopulation is not the primary cause of everything, but it does add up, okay? However, sometimes you find other countries have the same problem and even more problems because of other reasons. One reason may be in the US in the sense of they use too much of that chemical, okay? For different reasons in India, they don't. Do you see? So that's why it's important, okay? That's number one. Number two, another thing is that if the research, for example, shows that there is a connection, right, between overpopulation and increase of carbon dioxide usage, then obviously that is a direct, okay, but not always. So be careful of that, okay? So overpopulation does cause many problems, but others not necessarily, okay? Other problems can be caused by it. Okay, any questions? Yes, is anyone confused? No? Okay, great.
One of the first studies to compare global emissions involved over 200 diverse researchers and policymakers. The result, called Project Drawdown, published a definitive list on reducing our impact.
We did very complex models, and we didn't know what they would be. I had a strong hunch of what the top 10 would be, and I was completely wrong, and all the rest of us were wrong. Number one was refrigerant management.
Yes, you heard that right. The way we keep things cool is one of our worst offenses against the planet. Our air conditioners and refrigerators still largely emit greenhouse gases much stronger than carbon dioxide when cooling or transporting frozen goods. The project estimates that changing to more efficient cooling could save 5 times more emissions than if all cars became electric. Another big one on the list is something we can all individually do something about.
Food is huge. It's about almost a third of all global emissions go to the food system. Waste nothing possible.
No one can really deny that the human population has an impact on the environment.
Okay, this is another example. So human environment does, overpopulation does have an impact on pollution, right? So the vegetables, the gas, the pollution, everything around us, the air, how we have our food, how we have, for example, every day when we go out, the air around us, the environment around us, having gardens, having plants, having clean seas and lakes and rivers, okay, it does affect. So the more people, it's harder to control. And obviously it's harder to have them organized, and, you have huge populations, you can't, tell them, and you can't tell them this rules and regulations that would make an obstacle for them, right? It would be unrealistic. So this keep in mind, but it does not mean it's a direct reason of why there is pollution, right? So we want to be careful here. So yes, overpopulation does cause pollution. However, it's not a direct reason. There are other problems in the world that creates the pollution more than overpopulation. So we will see if that's true. Okay, let's see.
But right now, wealthier countries emit so much carbon that even adding 3 or 4 billion people in the global south won't significantly impact the rate of climate change. Also, lowering consumption sounds way easier than deciding whether that many people should or shouldn't exist.
To say there's too many people is sort of unkindness to a person. Each person thinks there's too many. No one.
It's time to change the narrative, away from the easy-to-blame visual problem of population to the more hidden and dangerous concerns of waste and overconsumption. We try to answer the biggest questions concerning climate change today. For more videos like this, subscribe to our new channel where we post every Friday.
Okay, so what do you think? Do you think that's, is that true that overpopulation not necessarily, affects directly these problems? What do you think? So this video is a kind of different perspective. Okay, so we said that the overpopulation does cause many problems, but this video has a perspective, yes, and it's a huge problem and we should deal with it. However, we should be careful that it's not direct. There are other problems, okay, that causes, like for example, pollution or the global warming, or certain chemicals or certain kind of habits in the culture. They may not have overpopulation, but it creates a lot of problems, okay, direct, more than overpopulation, okay? So this shows us that we have to be kind of precise. We have to be, accurate in how we evaluate the topic and social problem, okay? That's really important, in the different problems that we will talk about. So some problems you'll find they create directly, issues, others not necessarily. Okay, what do you think is a direct, right away clear problem that is created by overpopulation? Think about it.
Sorry, again.
What's a direct kind? What's a direct problem from overpopulation besides environment? Yes. Would you say, Noam?
Cars. A lot of cars.
Excellent. So use more cars, right?
Make a lot of pollution, so to make a carbon dioxide.
Good job. That is true. Okay, so cars is actually, a number one issue with overpopulation because of traffic, because of the pollution. Okay, now you will find some arguments outside, okay, in the world is that actually it's not overpopulation. It's more of the culture of the country organizing itself in how the people they use the cars. Okay, you'll find some countries maybe they're small, they don't have many people in them. However, the problem is that they don't, maybe for a person of like maybe a family of 5, they have 5 cars, okay? Or maybe a family of 5, sometimes they have 10 cars, right? Okay, so that's another issue. Do you see? So in a social problem, we have to look at different perspectives and arguments. Now here, we can't say that what she is saying in the video is 100% correct, and at the same time, we cannot say that other people's are 100% correct. So here, it's not about who's correct, who's right. It's more about different perspectives, and it's based on research. Do you see? So that's why you would find in the video, they present many different statistics and people they come in who are in the field, who work in the research area, and they show their perspective based on research. So do you see how much research is important to show how big the problem is, if it really causes the problem, okay? Why do you think it's important? Why do you think it's important for us to base it on research of what the extent, or how much it is direct that this social problem causes, like overpopulation causes such problems? Why do you think? Think about it in the real world. Before we go, okay, we're almost done with this session.
I think because we can get the total of the people around the world by
Excellent.
searching.
The total of people around the world. Okay, so this is part of using research, right? Yes?
And how we solve the conflict.
How we
So we now want to see the conflict, and then we will see what the solution that we will make.
Excellent job. Okay, I'm with you on that. Okay, so so right now the research shows us the numbers, so shows us how much the problem is in the country, right? And also shows us how big the problem is. So you find overpopulation, there are so many problems it causes, but which problems really are the biggest ones? I want to know which problems are the biggest ones. Okay, so